In our video for Plan 1, we talked about the flow of electricity through the transmission. We talked about the pinouts and what color wires you would normally anticipate seeing at each of those pinouts. And then we just put switches to the appropriate wires to control the solenoids. And then we came up with a way of implementing those switches in such a manner that it felt natural, better than what I've seen other people posting on their videos. So essentially it just came down to, we use an extra switch that duplicates the switch for solenoid 1 or solenoid A, and so with all of the switch, we put our first two switches in backwards, so they're actually on, but they look like they are off, they feel like they are off. So we are in first gear with all the switches to the rear, flip the first one forward, now we're in second one forward, we are in third one forward, we are in fourth. Our torque converter lockup is on its own switch, and that's the plan. Now we're going to move on to Plan 2, and for Plan 2 we are going to stop thinking about controlling the solenoids, and we're going to start thinking about controlling the gears. So we're going to use a 4-position switch, 1 position for each of the gears. So we'll just have first, second, third, and fourth. And we'll talk about how we're going to wire that up to make that happen. So we won't be going over all of those pinouts and the wiring again. We'll assume that you know what wire's coming from which solenoid, and we're just going to talk about the hookup for that. If you want to run this 4-way switch, you're going to need to get a switch that has 16 poles, because you're going to need to be able to run up to 2 wires or 2 connections at each position, and you can't commingle those, you can't cross those over. They're going to need to remain separated from each other, so you'll need 16 poles. So I bought this on Amazon. It was like $9 and some change. Not recommending this one specifically, but it seems fine to me. I don't have any complaints with it, except for they sent me the wrong switch the first time, but that ended up working out cool for me because I used that for something else. For the 4-way switch that I got, they also have boxes available to put that in. I think this was an extra $9. It's got little plugs you can put through the side. I don't know if I'll use it or not, but when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's a decent starting point. Maybe I'll use it. So those are available if you get that particular switch. And then we use lights, indicator lights, to represent our solenoids, so we have a visual representation of when those solenoids are being activated. We're going to use each solenoid twice to complete our 4 gears. So the wires that you have coming from your solenoids, you want to put a splitter on it so that you have 2 connections available to hook up to from each solenoid, and put whatever kind of connectors you'll need to hook onto the switch that you are using. For us today, I have orange wires on solenoid 1 and yellow wires on solenoid 2. Your most common for a 4L60E would be green on the first solenoid going to pinout A, and yellow on the second solenoid that is pinout B. Just using what we have. So today, solenoid A is orange. You probably will see the solenoids referenced as a 1-2 shift solenoid and a 2-3 shift solenoid. 1-2 equals A, 2-3 equals B. Just somewhere along the line they changed terminology, but when you're doing this rewiring stuff on your own, it's just easier, at least it is for me, to just consider them to be solenoid A and B the way that they were originally labeled. Normally I would hook up all the grounds first, but I think for today it'll be easier to follow if we go ahead and hook up the solenoids first. We will start by hooking up the solenoids to first gear. We know that in first gear both solenoids are activated, so we're going to hook up both solenoids to the first position on the switch. know that in second gear, just the second solenoid is activated, so we will hook that up to the second position on the switch. We know that third gear doesn't have any solenoids activated, so we won't put anything there. Fourth gear is just using solenoid A, and so we will hook up solenoid A. Then, anywhere that we have a solenoid attached, we have to get that circuit to ground in order for the solenoid to be activated. So, we will just put the appropriate grounds to match the solenoids, or the solenoid wiring that we hooked up. And we have an extra ground that's going to be for the torque converter lockup. So now we have power to the appropriate switches coming from the solenoids, and we have grounds. We'll hook up our ground. Give it a quick test before we move on. We are in first gear. We have both solenoids activated. Second gear, just solenoid B. Third gear, none of the solenoids are activated. Fourth gear, back to solenoid A. Right? It's that simple. Now we can move forward. The last thing that we're going to deal with is our torque converter lockup. Typically that would be a brown wire coming off pin out T. As long as that goes to ground, it activates the torque converter. This would be as simple as putting a switch between those, just like we have on the other things, and you're ready to fly. You've got first, second, third, fourth on your dial switch, and torque converter lockup on a flip switch. For most of us, I think the torque converter lockup only being available in fourth gear will be fine. So that's the way I'm going to set this up. If you're going to be towing something on a regular basis, or just actually at all, you may have situations where you won't be able to use overdrive. You won't have the torque to pull that, especially if you're in a hilly area. And so you may want to have your torque converter lockup available in third gear also. And there may be instances that I'm just not aware of that you might want it in any other gear. That's up for you to decide. I'm going to wire mine so that it won't come on in anything but fourth. So if you want that available in third and fourth, just make a splitter wire and hook it to third and fourth. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the combination of a relay combined with momentary switches work. The load on this would be before the relay. I'm sure there's a way to accomplish it, but I'm not smart enough to figure it out, and I certainly am not going to be able to figure it out today. So we are going to use a switch just like we used on the other one, and you commonly see. Where did I put the switch? So we have our torque converter lockup routed through our rotary switch, locked into just fourth gear, and then we have an extra that I put there ahead of time going to ground, so we're just going to hook our switch in, and that will be our torque converter lockup. So it's double switched, so the switch has to be turned on, and it's only going to work in fourth gear in this instance. What we end up with is rotary switch, 4 positions. First gear, both solenoids activated. Second gear, just the B solenoid activated. Third gear, no solenoids are activated. Fourth gear, just solenoid A, and in fourth we have a torque converter lockup. We shift it down to third, torque converter lockup will be gone. Have to remember to turn that off or it will automatically come on when we go back into fourth gear / overdrive.